everybody. Happy to be with you. This is part 2 of today's Pass Ball Show on the 9th day of December 2017. Lots of stuff we're going to get into, but I'm happy to be joined right now by a man who has spent a good part of his entire life in Major League Baseball. He's played in the major leagues in the 1970s and the 1980s as a catcher for the Cubs, Cardinals, and San Diego Padres. Has spent many years later on as a minor league manager and has also been a major league coach, and that's Steve Swisher. Steve, what's going on, man? Thanks for having a couple
minutes.
Thank
you so much. I'm honored to be a part of your show.
Now, listen, man, thanks for having me over. And once again, we are in Florida. We're going to be spending some time here at the baseball winter meetings, getting some insight from a lot of different people. And the first thing I want to throw at you in regards to stuff that's going on today. What's your first reaction when you heard about the Stanton trade?
Well, I known Derek Jeter a little bit because Nick, my oldest son, played with him.
Yeah.
I just had a great feeling that he was going to be a heck of a leader in the administrative part of it, but I knew they were going to make some changes. Yeah. And for him to do that and get some talent from the Yankees, it really didn't surprise me because I think he was a great player, but I think he's going to be a very successful baseball guy in the front office.
Yeah, I think it's going to be one of those things that you're going to need to wait a little time before you catch judgment. And you've seen it happen in many other teams in professional sports. I mean, geez, look at what the Houston Astros did.
Oh my God!
They completely broke that thing down to absolutely nothing. Looked like they had no plan for a while, and then all of a sudden things started. They got the fruits of all their hard work and their investment that they put in the organization. So I could see the Marlins doing something similar to that too. Obviously, the Yankees end up getting a star player, and because of that, to me, if they don't win the World Series this year, I don't think there's any excuses.
Well, I think you have to understand, in which you do in New York. It's what have you done for me lately or today? But anybody who goes into New York, that's what you go there for a part of. You want to be a part of a World Series champion. But on the other hand, talking about Houston, it's great for baseball. What they did was they developed their own players in the organizations, which sometimes some organizations don't. But I think that's what Jeter's going to do with Miami. But the thing about it is they brought a talented group of young athletes who had the right attitude for themselves and each other to be a champion.
And I tell you, one of the things that worked out too was the fact that they put a system in place.
Yes, sir.
And it wasn't, obviously, in order to have success, you need to have good players. You can't do that with just, any group of players that you put together. But the fact that they did decide that they were going to have a system of the way that they brought up their players and the things that they would expect out of players, I think allowed for a couple players that may not have been, top notch in regards to being star caliber, to kind of perform a little better than what was expected because they had that nurturing as they were growing up. So by the time they became a major leaguer, they were ready.
Now, John, you got it exactly right. But for me, I call those kind of players contributive players.
Yeah.
Because they're going to help you somehow, but they may not be one of your top players, but every day they've got a purpose, and somehow, some way, doing the things that's going to be contributive to the club's success.
Now, what are you talking about? Is there somebody that comes to mind? Is there a player that you could think of, let's say, that you either played with or against? You're like, you know what, he may not have been a star, but I'll tell you, he was the glue that kept that team together. Yeah,
there was quite a few players that I could, but even more so, I have to remember back to the days I managed in the minor leagues. Yeah. Because, I think one of the things we talked about was not really about winning, because I think every young person in America knows to be successful, you have to win. Whatever you're doing, whatever it is. But my challenge to them was to be the best that you can be every day. And you may go out and take an 0 for 4 offensively, but you might turn 2 double plays late in the game that help us be successful, or you might have done one other thing or whatever. But as long as you're on that contributive track, you're going to do good things to help your team be successful.
Now, I'll tell you another thing that to kind of piggyback off of what you're saying. Let's say you're up there and you go 0 for 4, but you hit 4 line drives. You hit the ball on the screws every time.
Yeah.
It's natural you're going to come away feeling like you didn't contribute. But I do think there's from mentorships and teammates and coaches and stuff like that. There's reasons to make sure somebody holds their head up high when they're doing things right, but just not getting the results.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that we had talked about a little bit earlier. Is whether you're in a coaching or managing or a player, that biggest thing is that mutual respect. I hear today, they want somebody who can communicate with the players. And I understand that to a certain degree. But I think about the thing for each player, once they come to the big leagues and they're going up through, is that mutual respect aspect, because they're human.
Yeah.
They want a security blanket. When I fail, will you help me back up on my feet? Will you work with me on what I need to do? But it's a contributive effort from the manager all the way down to the players. And the thing about it is, I know as a player, when you're going good, you don't want anybody around you. And when you're not going good, you don't want anybody around you either. But we're all looking for that security blanket saying, hey, it's going to be all right. You keep busting it. Every day, good things are going to happen to you.
Yeah, and I think that applies a little bit to the modern day baseball manager. A little bit. I mean, one man's opinion. I think it's a little too much to that side. But that being said, I think that can help as long as the things that you just mentioned are provided for the players. But the thing that always interests me, and I've spoken about it a lot on my show, is how, and this doesn't just apply to sports, there seems to be a lack of accountability for anybody.
I agree.
And whether it's athletes, whether it's children, whether it's anything in society, that we used to understand that there was a reason that if we didn't do something right, we would need some reinforcements to understand that we wouldn't make those same mistakes again.
Yeah.
And it almost seems like there's a fear on all levels, whether it's corporations worried about putting a statement out there and offending somebody, or Major League Baseball teams that may not seem to want to have any progressive discipline going on in their clubhouse.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me, John, is that it took me a while, but to make friends, you have to be a friend first.
Oh, of course.
And if that person doesn't turn out to be going down the same road, it's okay. But once you put that good foot forward and you extend your friendship, to me, that's what life's all about. Yeah. And as I was telling you before, probably the greatest experience in my life was being in a big league clubhouse. And we had black guys, white guys, Latin guys, Asian guys. It didn't matter. Yeah. Because the thing for me, if we opened up our forearms, what color are we all bleeding?
Exactly.
It's red.
It's not coming out
to
any
me,
different color.
we're on the same tangent, pal. Yeah. So if we're going to go out and go to war every night, we have to be able to trust each other. And trust is a huge word. But when you go out of there with that attitude and that intent to be the best that you can possibly be, and you have that trust that regardless, if I'm contributive today and I don't get it done, somebody's going to pick me up.
Yeah, exactly. And I tell you, there's so many different ways we can go in it. And those who have paid attention to my show understand that. You know what? There are other things that I'm looking to see change, and it's all going to be for the better. And part of it has to do with a couple of things that you just said there, talking about the level that you're at, and not looking at what it is that one looks like in the mirror.
Yeah.
Or the differences between me and you, or you and the next person, or that next person and me. I think it's very hard to do, but God, at the beginning, throughout life, has never created any of us for our differences. Mm-hmm. He created all of us to be the same. We're all His children. No doubt. Every single last one of us.
Every one.
And it's it's just unfortunate as we get a little bit of wind here. I hope it's not impacted what you're hearing here. It's the Pass Ball Show. John Pielli here. Do another reintroduction while we got the wind here. Steve Swisher's here with me. We are in Tampa, Florida, as we get set for the baseball winter meetings, which are going to start tomorrow. Steve, obviously you had a chance. You went to the University of Ohio,
right?
And it was at that point where your coach asked you to make a position change. You came up as a shortstop. Please, I want the listeners to hear the story.
It was an eye-opening experience because I thought I was a pretty good athlete, and at that time they had talked about moving Mike Schmidt to third base and giving me an opportunity to play short.
Oh yeah, by the way, Mike Schmidt's on the same team.
And what a great athlete. I've always said, I've got to say this, one of the greatest athletes that I've ever played with or against And the other two for me were Dave Winfield and Gary Templeton. Absolutely tremendous. But Schmitty was a great teammate. I'm proud to have had the opportunity to play with him. But the thing about it, my coach said, I think you can go further in throw ball as a catcher than you can shortstop. And I thought, you're crazy.
And now at the time, you had never played catcher in your life.
Well, let's put it this way. I'd never put on the tools of ignorance. And the thing about it was, I went home and told my parents, and I knew what the reaction would be. And it was like, nah, I don't think so. But so I went back to school that Monday, and I had the greatest speech made up to tell Coach Wren, Bob Wren, who's in the Hall of Fame, and I think he's the greatest fundamentalist I've ever been around. I'm going to tell him why I don't want to catch.
Yeah.
Well, when I went to walk in the workout facility, I went to go in the front doors, and I thought, oh my God, I'm not going to win this way. He may be coming this way. So I walked all the way around to the back of the building, so I'd miss him. Well, I get in the back doors, and as I'm walking up the hallway, I hear the front doors open, and I look up. There he is. So I'm getting the speech ready, and we get face to face, and he says, Swish, your catching gear's in the locker room. You got 30 minutes to work out upstairs with a graduate assistant, Bill Gator Young, who's a retired state trooper in the state of Ohio. And that's what I did for almost 3 weeks.
Wow.
And that's what I had to do to make the spring trip. And I did, and in the long run, Coach Wren was right. But at that time, I knew there was two things I had to learn. One, I had to have a great work ethic. And I think it's what all athletes have to do.
Yeah, of course.
And number two, I had to be willing to learn. And a lot of times I think when we get to different success levels, sometimes we think we have all the answers. And you have to listen to a certain degree and figure out what you can do and what you can use to make you the best athlete you can.
Yeah, of course. And obviously, at this moment, you're going through a big change. This is something, like you said, you're putting on those catcher, the catching equipment for the first time. Did you feel like it was a tough transition? Is this something that you felt took a long time before you felt comfortable?
It depends on what you call a long time.
Okay.
But the first thing is for all you young catchers who are starting, you blink. So to get used to leaving my eyes open and seeing the ball all the way into the hitting area was the first adjustment. And the second adjustment I had was on balls in the dirt. I used to have a bad habit of bowling my neck instead of tucking my chin. And the second time I get hit in the throat, they had to pack me in ice. And I thought, I'm not sure this is it. But me being the hard-headed individual I am and not willing to give anybody the satisfaction of knowing that I could do anything, I put my nose to the grindstone and said, I'm going to show people I can do this. And so one thing just kept leading to the other. And I started when I went back my sophomore, junior, and senior years, and I got drafted, and I'm very proud of that.
Now, you obviously had a chance to play in the major leagues for a long time. A couple different teams, many different players, kind of went back and forth. Is there anybody that comes to mind when you think of, this was the best relationship that I made in the entire sport? Your best baseball relationship?
There's no hesitation to me. Frank Howard.
Okay.
And probably the second who had a lot of respect for me, and I had great respect for him, was Dallas Green.
Okay.
Some people like Dallas, some people don't. I like Dallas. I love Dallas Green because he treated me like a man. And it was either yes or no. There was no in between. But Frank Howard, I've said this before, I think during my career, playing and catching and coaching, I think the two most popular people in baseball at that time were Frank Howard and Willie Stargell.
Okay.
Fans loved both of them, players loved both of them, and respected them.
Yeah, no, I tell you, it's so important. We spend a lot of time talking about respect, and I think, respect starts with the way that you treat somebody, but also it has to be reciprocated at some point.
Right.
And one of the things that I sense, and man, I hate to keep bringing this up, but we're getting to a point in society where maybe it's too far to say that it's soft, but I do believe that we're getting to a point where we're coddling individuals, coddling children, where there is not enough accountability that's putting there to show them the difference between right and wrong. And I know from a person that's a parent, which you are as well,
right.
I think that's the most important thing. You want to make sure that your children, or when you're talking about sports, the people that are working underneath you are going to be able to be okay when they're free on their own.
Yeah, exactly.
And at a point where them not understanding the difference between right and wrong, which is happening in a lot of cases, I'm scared of what the future holds.
I'm with you. And I've got 2 granddaughters, and I'm starting to think that way myself. But I think in the long run, I like all kind of people. And I think there's 3 things that need to be done, whether it be sports, business, life, or anything else. To be successful at what we're doing, you have to be a communicator.
That's very important.
You have to find out about those people and have them find out about you. And the second thing is you have to be an educator. We can stand off in the distance and form our opinions of people that we don't even know. And that's a big problem, either because of hard-headedness or just flat-out ignorance. And the third thing is, nowadays, we have to motivate each other. America's in a tough situation right now, whether it's on the street or whatever it is we're in. But we have always been the greatest country in the world. And we have always been accountable and responsible as individuals for our actions, of what we do and what we say. We can get back to that, but we have to put an effort forward. And there's no excuses that we don't. But it's easier to stand back and make opinions and what you think of this or that, instead of that confrontation of sitting down and listening to 2 sides of it with the idea that at the end of the conversation, we're going to resolve something of what you think, what I think, or what's best for both of us.
It's funny, what I think of when you say that is I think of that little quarrel you have with a good friend of yours or a sibling. When you're a kid, you're playing football down the road, or best friend, you have, you contact, and you get into it, you start throwing some punches, and at the time you feel like you're really in conflict. Mm-hmm. The next day, you got your arm around them, you're playing.
I know.
And that's what really has to happen on a bigger level in regards to, we're talking about a lot of individual people that have a lot of different individual needs. Yeah. And, what works for me may not work for you, and what works for somebody else may not work for that other person. But, the bottom line is we seem to have gotten away from talking about it. And it's like the only time that it's being spoken about is if it's a blast from somebody that disagrees, saying, this is how bad this person is. Yeah. And that's a part of society which I feel we've gotten way too far away from, is the understanding, the discussion, and you know what? The willingness to have, for 5 minutes, have a legitimate discussion back and forth, even if it gets a little heated, knowing in the end you're going to get somewhere, and it's going to be better for the 2 of you, but also better for mankind and society.
Yeah, no doubt. I think one of the other big things for me is, whether it be in a friendship, whether it be in a relationship, whatever, we need to check our egos at the door. So when we get into these conversations, it's not an I-me world. It's about us, where I stand, where you stand, where should we stand, what can we do to be better, to help other people. For you to ask me to do this, I'm excited, man. That you gave me the privilege to do this. I love doing this because I think in my later years, the biggest thing for me, I want to help other people. I'm not quite sure what direction I need to be headed, but I want to help other people, whether it's get a better understanding of themselves, it's a better understanding of goals and dreams, or it's helping them accomplish the things in the direction of life they want to go.
Yeah, and I've said it all along. I mean, I'm 38 years old, but I don't know how much longer I got. So I've said...
It doesn't make me feel good at 66.
You know what, though? If I'm your age, I'd be happy. But, to maybe, take the little joke out of it, the fact is that, we all have a chance. And I've said all along that God gives us puts us on the timer, or He gives us an expiration date. And the unfortunate thing for us is none of us know when that is.
That's right.
Some of it's way too soon, but for other of us, hey, we might think you have another 20 years, but we may not. Yeah. And I think it's very important to each individual person to make sure they let those around them know that not only that the ones that they love and care about, but to understand that person that may not be the same as them, that they respect. And that's the message that I want to send out to everybody, for everybody that may feel like they're not me, may feel like they're not in my category or group, or may have judged me or judged themselves by segregating themselves into their own group. They need to know from me that I care. I consider myself a part of them, and I consider them, them a part of me as well.
It's the thing is that what you're talking about, that we need to extend ourselves as relationship type people, whether it be acquaintances, friends, or whatever it is in society, because we're not going to win this battle by ourselves.
No, we all need each other.
But we need people going out on the line saying, hey, to each individual, you're somebody special. And you know what? Whatever it takes for us to get there, we're going to try to accomplish it. And to go on the same lines, I remember either my first or second year in the big leagues, I had a great experience playing with Don Kessinger, who I think is one of the greatest Christian athletes that ever played the game. And the thing about it is, I remember we went to Cincinnati, and a mother and father had either written him a letter or called him on the phone and asked him that when he came to Cincinnati, if he would come to their house, because their son health was not very good. So, he goes over there and he visits, and before he left the house, the young boy said to him, and I'm sure he was maybe only 10 or 11, and he hollered at Donnie and said, Mr. Kessinger, he said, when I grow up, I want to be just like you. And not many months later, the young boy passed away. And I've always remembered that story. But if that attitude, if we think of others many times before we think of ourselves, and extend that helping hand in any way we can, that's what our purpose in life. And I've been blessed. I can be hard-headed. I know I've been blessed, and I want people to know that. I've had a great fortune of experiencing things I dreamed of. I've had great experiences of playing with people that I used to watch playing on TV. I'm a lucky guy. I've got a great family. I've got great friends, and I've got 2 granddaughters that I love to death. And as grandparents, you know where I'm coming from, because I've already had my fingernails painted once. But it's what life's about.
That's true.
And I think I'm finally enjoying life and what it's really meant to be.
That's fantastic. And obviously, before we go, I want to hear a good story about your son Nick. Obviously, a lot of listeners, know him as well from his time in the major leagues.
Yeah.
And obviously, you had a chance to guide him through that, get him into sports, and I'm sure a big task in hand in the man he's become.
Well, I'm proud to hear you say that, because I'm proud of being a very good father. But you can do and do and do, and you hope and pray to God that good things happen to your children and they turn out to be the people. I've been fortunate, and with Nick and his brother Mark, but Nick's always been that way. He's happy-go-lucky, but he's got a big heart, and he has been involved in so many things, but he's always strived to be the best. And I think one thing that he and I have talked about, which he tells me every once in a while, is that he always told me that you need to teach people the way that you want them to treat you.
Yeah.
And I think he's a great ambassador for baseball. Now his career is over, but he's still involved with the Yankees and stuff. But I think he's very proud to call me his dad, and I'm very proud to call him my son.
Well, I'll tell you, I got 2 kids right now, my 11-year-old Alexis and my soon-to-be 2-year-old Nolan. I hope they say that about me. I hope I'm able to have that same impact on my children.
Oh, well, I tell you what, it's like I said, I just remembered one real quick one before we get off the air here now, but I remember when he was in junior high school, and we lived in Columbus, Ohio, and him and his brother had their bedrooms downstairs at the house. Well, he would run out, he'd sneak out late at night with some of his friends and checking to see how some of his girlfriends were doing. And I told him, if I catch you doing that, it'll be the last time. And he goes, what? And I said, you heard what I said? Well, I caught him.